Got to get those YouTube hits. You know. All right, here we go. The goal is we're gonna make some frames. Last semester we did an assignment where we had like a red frame, yellow frame, blue frame, green frame. We just put it in a grid. So we're gonna do something like that, except we're actually gonna put stuff on it this time instead of just having these empty frames. So the first thing we're gonna do is import tkinter. Again, this is the module that we're gonna be using. We got to shorten it, right? Because we're too lazy to type out tkinter all the time, so we got to shorten it. Now, I've talked to you about this last class period, how we're going to have to be on the internet quite a bit looking for code on how to do certain things. When you do that, some people are going to do their import like this. You don't have to type this in. You might want to type it in as a comment. It looks like this: from tkinter import star. What that means is they're so, I'm going to say they're so lazy, but they're not going to type tk or tkinter in front of their stuff, is what that means. So this makes it so you don't have to use tk or tkinter in front of tkinter objects. I don't like to do that because I don't like just random words floating around that aren't attached to anything and I don't know what they're from. So I prefer to actually use the library so it's very clear. This is from something from the tkinter library. So it'll have tk in front of it. But if you try and copy and paste something from some website and it doesn't work, that is a possibility of why it doesn't work, is because they imported their stuff differently than you did. So you need to go to the top of the code and see, all right, how do they import their library? And that determines how you use the widgets. All right, the first step is making a root window. Most everybody calls it root. You don't have to, it's just a variable name, but most people name it root that you'll see on resources. I'm going to use tk dot. So you're going to see tk dot for everything that we do that is graphical user interface related. And then the first thing we do is we make a window. So from the tk library, we're going to make a capital tk window. We're going to determine the size of our window. And for this, you can just do use a string with the dimensions typed in. And then I'm going to go a little bit further down here and do root.mainLoop because this has to be the last line. So you want to make sure that's at the bottom. So you should be able to run that and it'll bring up a window. You can manage to spell geometry correctly. Yay. Doing good? Doing all right so far? Okay. Next step. We're going to put some frames on our window. Frames are for organization. Okay? You don't see a frame until you put stuff in it, but it's for arranging your stuff. I'll show you an example. Web pages use frames. Like if you go to like just any major website, these headlines over here are in a frame. It's a frame with a bunch of links in it. They want those links to be together. No matter where they show up on the screen, they want them to be all grouped together. So they put them in a frame. The frame itself is just empty, and then they put a bunch of links in. This main window here is a frame. This set of scores at the top is a frame, right? And then you put stuff in the frame, and then you tell the frame where to be, so that when I go visit this website on my phone or on my desktop computer or whatever, the website might look a little different because it might lay out a little bit differently. Like on your phone, this headline stuff is not next to the main picture. It's always main picture and then headlines underneath. But it's the same content. Since it's on your phone, though, you never like scroll sideways on your phone to go look at the rest of a website. That's not what you do on your phone. You scroll up and down, and then the rest of the content is below instead of side to side. Anyway, we're going to make a couple frames here so that we can have our stuff organized. All right. Eventually, I'm going to try and make a left frame and a right frame. So I'm going to go frame left. And again, we're making a widget. That's just the broad name for all tkinter objects. So it's tk.frame this time. When you make a widget, like a frame or a label or a text box or a button, you do two things. You tell it the parent. Identify the parent object. The parent means who am I adding this button onto? Where does it go? So for the frame, the parent is the root itself. This frame is going to go in the main window. And then secondly, you have to tell it how it's the layout of this thing is going to be managed. If you do not include the layout part, you will not see your thing on the screen. So later today, you're going to make some like labels and buttons, and you're being like, why isn't my label or button showing up? It's because you didn't determine the layout. So you have to do this part. You type in the same name, and there's two types of layouts that we're going to use. One of them is called pack, and one of them is called grid. You used grid on your assignment last semester where you made the 4 windows, the red, blue, green, yellow thing. But we're going to use pack right now. Pack just means put this on the window, in the window, in the order that I added it. So if you do this dot pack and that dot pack and then this other thing dot pack, it'll just stack them in order in which you pack them. So if you want to reverse how they're laid out, you just got to call pack on this one first and then this pack on this one next. Okay. Now this frame is, you're not going to see it because it has nothing in it. So like you can hit play right now and you're not going to see any difference because there's nothing in the frame yet. So let's put something in the frame. We're going to make a label. So let's go label 1. So this time, who do I want the parent to be? This time I want the parent to be the frame itself, not the main window. I'm going to put stuff in the frame now. So I'm going to say your parent added onto is the frame that I just made. Now, when you make these things, labels and frames and buttons, there's a whole host of properties that you can set if you want. You have to determine a parent. That's required. But the rest of the properties are optional. With a label, the property that you're most likely to be setting is the text property. That's kind of the point of labels, is to show text. So you probably want to set that property. You don't have to, but then you just have nothing. So we put some text in there. For other label options, this is where you go on the internet and you go, okay, tkinter label widget. What's going on here? what kind of things can I do with a label? And then there's just this giant list of properties that you can set. Do you want to set the foreground color? FG. Do you want to determine the height? Do you want to determine the background color? BD. BG. BD is the border size. There's all these different properties you can do. Okay, so we did step one. We said who's the parent of this thing. Now we need to do step two. How is the layout going to be managed? And once again, we're going to call pack and say throw it on there. And now when you play, you should see something. Oh boy. Little texty text there at the top. So you can see, you might have expected it to maybe appear at the top left or maybe in the center, but the default is it's at the very top in the center. We can change that, and we will do some changing of that, but that's the default. Let's add a couple more properties here. Okay? Let's set the foreground color and the background color. I really want you to be able to see how much space the label is taking up, and also how much space the frame is taking up. Okay, so let's set the background color of our label. Color. I mean, we should probably go with cornflower, right? Was that what it was? Help me out. Cornflower squad. Okay. Do I have to type in blue? Let's find out. Unknown color name. Oh no. Yeah, all right. We did it. There we go. Okay, so there's our label. It's just taking up the amount of space that it needs to for the text. If you make the text bigger, it's going to take up more space. If you make the text smaller, it's going to take up less space. Let's do the same thing with our frame, because I want you to see the frame. So let's go back up to our left frame, and we're going to add a property to the frame. Go background again. So pick a different color, obviously. Don't do cornflower again. Gold, I think. Ooh, it appears that it is, but, so I didn't get in any errors. But the label is taking up the entirety of the frame. So even though I set the background color of the frame, you don't see it because the label's taking up the whole frame. Try this out. Let's go. I want to put a border around my frame so you can really see the frame here. So I'm going to go like this. To get the border to show up, you have to do a property called relief. And then you set it equal to tk.raised. That's just one of the options for the type of border. Why am I not seeing anything there? Oh, now I can see it. Sorry, you have to add on a border width as well. There we go. My bad. So now you can see the gold there, it's peeking out. But again, this just shows you that our frame is really small, and our frame only takes up as much space as it needs to contain what's inside it. Okay, all right, so now it's your turn. Here's what I want from you. Make a left frame, because eventually we're going to do a left and right frame and put stuff in each one. And add it to the window. Sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry, right frame, my bad. And then make a button, add it to the right frame. Okay, this is going to be a lot of copy and paste. Okay, I highly encourage you to copy and paste here. When you copy and paste, you got to be careful to change the things that you should change, like names, text, that kind of stuff. But it's pretty much identical to what we just did. Instead of making a label, though, I want you to make a button. Buttons are clickable, labels are not. If you make it, you'll be able to tell that it's a button because when you click on it, it'll look like it's being clicked. All right, I'm going to give you a good 5 minutes here to tool around with that. Make a frame, and then put a button on the frame. Yeah. Good. Classic. Okay, so I'm literally just going to copy and paste this entire set of code here. The frame that I made, the label I made, because making another frame and a button is the exact same thing, different names. So I'm going to go frame right and pack that. And I'm going to go button one, which is a button, not a label. You want to have different colors, you're welcome, change the colors. There we go. Oops. Do you see the mistake I made? Oh, wait, did I make the mistake? Yes, I did. This is not quite what I wanted. Yeah, I added to the left frame instead of the right frame. I can tell because I made that background gold, and I can see that both objects are in the gold background. So I can tell that it's in the wrong frame. Now I can tell that they're not sharing a frame, even though they both have gold backgrounds, which I'm going to change just so I can tell the difference. So let's do a white thing. Yeah, sure. There we go. And of course, we should put some different text. Like that. There we go. Okay, I want to spend a little bit more time on the layout aspect before we make the button interactive. Eventually, we'll make our button actually do something. But for right now, I want to focus a little bit more on the layout aspect. Right now, we have two frames, one object on each frame, and the frames are basically like non-existent. They're only as big as the stuff inside them. So you can't even hardly see the frames. What I want to do is I want my label on the left, my button on the right, and I want my frames to kind of take up the space. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go way back up here to my left frame, and I'm going to tell it to go to one side of my of the screen. So you can do this with the side property. Notice that the other frame did not follow it. Now the other frame is just the top because that's the default side for any object. Top is the default. I moved one of my frames to the left, so the other one was like, "Ooh, sweet, I'll go to the top." Even though we didn't really tell it to do that. I want my other frame, though, to be aligned with my first frame. And you might think like, okay, left frame, right frame, that means one's going to be side left, the other one's going to be side right. And that is actually not what we're going to do. We're going to go down to our right frame in the pack method. Notice that this layout stuff is parameters for pack. If you missed that one in line 13 or wherever your left frame is, get that in there. Most of these properties that I put in this document here have to do with layout, and so you put them in the pack function, not in the properties of the frame itself. So with our right frame, I'm actually going to pack it to the left also, because I want it to be lined up next to my other frame. Well, all the widgets are uppercase. Okay, every widget's uppercase. These values like raised, these are like almost, they're final values. We don't quite have the language to describe what this means in this class just yet, but this is like a hard-coded value in the TK class, and it's defined what that value means in the class. And when you see all caps like that, that just means it's some value in the class, and there's a definition for what that means in the class itself. With this one left, I mean, that's literally just text. You could also actually do tk.left, and that works also. It is confusing, I definitely agree. But rules-wise, what do I have to have? Uppercase for widgets, lowercase for functions, lowercase for properties, and then, yeah, sometimes you'll see these all caps properties like this. Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah, so I've got my two frames now side by side, which is what I wanted. But they're all scrunched over there because frames only take up the amount of space that they need to put the stuff in them. So we got to set a couple properties here to tell our frames to be bigger. All right, so go up to your left one. And again, this is with the pack. And we're going to go fill. Fill is an important property for getting things to expand a little bit. There are three options for fill that you might use. There's both, there's X, and there's Y. Think about what that might mean. Fill X means fill sideways. Fill Y means fill north-south. And both means do both. All right, so I'm going to go tk.both. So this is another situation where both is just a defined word in the TK library. And that's why it's all caps. Go ahead and try that. Ooh. Ooh, now our frame is feeling itself a little bit. It's like, ooh, yeah, starting to stretch out. Okay, yes. Okay. You got side equals left down here? Okay, I'll come look at it in a second here. Now, you might be wondering, okay, we did both, so why did it only go this way? There's two properties we're going to use, fill and expand. And they sound really similar because they are really similar. Fill means take up as much space as available without like bumping into anyone. That's the best way I can describe it. So this frame was like, oh, there's some nice room here, north-south. I'm not getting in anybody's way. I'll just kind of lazily expand out a little bit. But then left-right, it was like, ooh, oh, crap, there's another frame there. Sorry, excuse me. Okay. If you really, but then there's all this wasted space over there, right? There's just a bunch of blank area, just nothing's happening. If you want all that blank area in the parent to be filled, so again, the parent is like is a root window. Each of our frames is a part of the root. If you want to take up all the space in the parent window, you got to add one more property, which is expand. So watch what happens when we not only do fill both, but expand. All right. Now our frame's like, get out of the way. And the other frame's like, oh, crap. It's off to the side. Now, I want my frames to be do a little side-by-side thing. So I'm actually going to go fill and expand on both of them. So I'm just going to copy those two parameters with the comma, and I'm going to paste them for the right frame path. Okay. All right. I'm going to go help out Mr. Hamilton. And what I want you to do is I want you to experiment with changing the properties of label 1.path. Okay. Try out fill with either an X or a Y. Then maybe try both. Try out expand equals true or not true and see what happens. Also try out side. Put the label on a side. Your options are top left, bottom, and right. Okay, so that's what I want you to experiment with is side, fill, and expand. See if you can get this texty text to do other stuff. No. Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying there. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, you can't do the same property twice. How do you do if you this is code, right? That's a possibility. I have hopes that that'll work, to be honest. Wants to be top bottom, right? Oh boy. What happens if we do? I honestly don't. I'm not sure what that will. Okay. What should I try here? Let's go. I'm going to put this one to the left also. And then I'm going to try some fill equals tkx. That was uninspiring. And equals true. So to really get it to go across the whole screen, you have to do the expand thing. Now, if I did TK both, I think it's going to fill up the whole frame. Yep. So that's not really what I want. I'm going to put it back to just X. Okay. All right. Let's actually do something now with our stuff. Okay, that's good enough on the layout stuff for right now. I want to actually make my button do something, and then to end class. So basically, what I have left is let's make our button do something, and then we're going to put on some radio buttons. Anybody know what a radio button is? No. Okay. You ever ordered a pizza online? You get to choose from 3 options usually, like large, medium, small. Right? And what do they have when you choose that? Huh? Yeah, exactly. The little dot circle thing. That's what a radio button is. It's the little circle thing where you get to choose one of a handful of options. They might sometimes do like a drop down box for that as well, where you click the little arrow and it drops down small, medium, large. You might see that for like, what state are you from, right? When they have 50 options, you don't want to have 50 radio buttons. That takes up way too much space. But when you have a limited number of options, radio buttons are nice. So we'll do that in a bit here too. Okay, let's get to making our button actually do something. If you want your button to do something, you have to tell it what function it should run. So we're going to define a function and connect it to our button and say, button, you do this when you get clicked. So we're actually going to do the button, you do this when you're clicked part first. That is the command property of a button. And so you have to type in command equals, and then you just make up a function name. So just whatever you want, like clicker, it doesn't matter. We're gonna define this function right now. So right now it says, oh, that doesn't exist, but we're gonna go define it. Okay, usually you define your functions towards the top of your code. The function has to be defined before it can be referenced by the button itself. So generally put them at the top. Whatever you named your function, type it there, your colon. Do note, right here, when we do command equals clicker, do not put empty parentheses like this. You don't do that, because that would literally call the function right then. Parentheses means call this function right now. We don't want to do that. We're just saying here's the name of the function. All right, so back up here. For testing purposes, you can always just print. Like, you can still use print and input from the console if you want to test things. It's a really good way to test stuff, because doing GUIs is hard and getting them to react to stuff is hard. And if you're not sure if it's going to work, so you run it, you click it, hey, it's printing high. So now we know our button actually is connected to the function. All right, let's do something more interesting. Let's change the property, change a property of our label. Our label's already been created. It has a name, label 1. You can set as many properties as you want when you make a label, all 50 of them or whatever there are. But you can also change those properties later. To do that with any widget, this is not unique to labels, with any widget, you can do name of the widget .config, and then you can just list whatever property you want to change. So you want to change the foreground color? Boom, let's do it. You want to change the text? Boom, let's do it. Let's get real ugly with our colors here. Uh-oh, what'd I do? Oh. Who can catch it? What mistake did I make? Aaron? No, that was not it. Yeah, I put a property in here, but I didn't tell it what property it was. I was just like assuming it would know that I wanted to set the text. It does not. Text equals. There we go. Great job. Good job clicking that button.
How do you do it when you click the click to choose a new just a new stuff?
Like a new form.
Right.
We did that with our login thing. Student asked, how do when I click a button, like what if I wanted to go to like a whole nother window or form or whatever? We did that with the login thing where we did, we had a whole new frame that took up the whole space, and we did frame.raise, sorry, TK raise. Like tk_raise is a function, and it makes a frame show up. So you'd have to make a whole new frame, basically. You're not going to make a new root window, just a frame that replaces everything. Real quick, let's make a little clicker here. I'm going to go x equals 0. Global x, because I want to change the value of x inside a function and this global variable. X equals x plus 1. And instead of just great job, I'm going to go great job. You've clicked Now, careful with this part, okay? I'm about to add some more text and variables into this concatenate onto the string. So I'm going to go plus to concatenate. I would like to concatenate x onto the string because I want it to say how many times you've clicked. But you can't, Python doesn't let you join integers and text like that. You have to convert this to a string using the old string function. And then I'll add the word times on the other side. Notice I have a leading space after clicked. I have another leading space here before times, a trailing space, I guess, and a leading space. Because if you don't put spaces in, it won't put them in. Oh yeah, now we got a sweet clicker game. Notice how our frame though expands to contain the text that's inside it, because that's what frames do. If you don't want that to happen, I'd have to look that up. I'm not sure what would make our frame stay that size, and because it is kind of weird to have a frame just like jump around in size like that. I'd have to look that up though as to how to keep it the same size. All right, we good? Got some clickers going? All right. So to finish up today, we're going to add one more frame in here with some radio buttons. All right. So to get that started, I'm gonna have you try this out again. See how well you've learned so far. Here's what I want. Add another frame to the right frame. Add a label to that frame with the text. What is your favorite season? I would definitely encourage you to make the background of this frame something that is not black so that we can see it, because it's going to go on a frame that is black background. So I want it to be in the lower right-hand corner, basically, on the right-hand side underneath our button. All right, try that out. By the way, folks at home, I know like if you got behind or got stuck or had an error, it's tough to come back. Here's what I have so far. If you want to just grab that and start editing from there, you're welcome to. Yeah, because you have the label and the husband text, and don't keep track of that. What's this one? So, yeah, I want to see the thing. I want to be able to do it. Yeah, you gotta add that green frame to the right frame, not the root. That right there, that root, that's the problem. You ready for the frame? Oh, you're ready for the frame. So, make one more frame. Copy and paste this one. Let's do that into the root. We're gonna add it to the right frame. And I want this frame to go inside. And then you gotta pack with it. So, how you want to pack it is up to you. Okay, real quick, I'll put this in. So I need a new frame. I'm going to call this my season frame. Whatever you named it, it's fine. But what I saw here in the classroom quite a bit is people were adding this frame to root. That's not where I want it. I want this frame inside my right frame. Now, if you want to copy over some of these other properties of the other frames, that's fine. Whatever. And then I'm going to change this to a nice cyan background. And then we will pack it. And again, if you want it to fill up the space, that's also fine. You can copy and paste the fill and expand options as well. It's up to you. And then I'm just going to copy and paste the label that I made before. And change its name. So label 2 instead of label 1. Label 2 instead of label 1. What's your favorite season? Whoops, daisy. Okay, so now, when you, as I mentioned, when you're copying and pasting, you got to be careful getting things changed you're supposed to change. I want this label in my new frame season. Obviously, it showed up in my other left frame, which I did not want. There we go. Oh, isn't this the best looking GUI you've ever seen? It's just so pleasing to the eye, especially when we get that color changed. Oh, fantastic. All right. So we need to get our buttons in here real quick. This is going to go fast. Here we go. First one, radio button 1. Hit the radio button. So you type in radio button. Who are we adding this radio button onto? A frame season, or whatever the most recent frame you made, whatever you called it. Radio buttons have text, otherwise you wouldn't know what they were for choosing. We're choosing a season. I'll do some winter. Okay. Before, all right, no, I'm going to go ahead and do it. R1, no, I told you earlier, there's 2 options for layouts, pack and grid. I already showed you pack a whole bunch of times, so now we're going to show you grid. Basically, I'm going to make 4 radio buttons for the 4 seasons, and I want it to go on a 2x2 grid. All right. The easiest way to do that is to use a grid layout. When you use the grid layout, you determine what row it's in and what column it's in. Type in row equals 1, column equals 0. If we run this right now, instead of putting the radio button on our frame, it's actually going to yell at us because I already have a label on that frame and I used pack to put that label on. When you use pack for one thing and grid for another that are in the same frame, it yells at you. And it says, you can't put 2 children on the same parent with different layout managers. That was a paraphrase. They use master and slave instead of parent and child. I don't know why, but I don't use those words. I don't want to say those words all the time. So I use parent and child. The parent of the radio button is frame, season. The parent of the label 2 is frame, season. You cannot pack one thing and grid another one in the same frame. So what I'm going to go back up here and do is I'm going to delete this entire pack thing for grid for label 2 and instead call grid. Again, with grid, you have to specify a row and a column. Go row equals 0, column equals 1, or sorry, equals 0. Try that out. There we go. Okay, ready for some copy and pasting? Let's get it fired up here. Okay, copy your radio button. Both lines. Well, there's 4 seasons, so let's copy paste once, twice, 3 times. First thing you probably want to do is rename them all. So radio button 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4. Second thing you want to do is change the rows and columns so that they're not all stacked on top of each other. You can put a whole bunch of things in the same row and column, but it's just going to put them on top of each other. It's not going to lay them out because we're not packing, we're gridding. So we got to update our row and column for all these. So the first one's fine, row 1, column 0. The second one, we're going to put in row 1, column 1. Column 0 is the left column, column 1 is the right column. This starts counting from 0, just like we always do with lists and everything. The third one, row 2 now, right? Our questions in row 0, our first two options are in row, last two options are in row 2. And then lastly, row 2, column 1. So your 4 buttons should go 1, 0, 1, 1, 2, 0, 2, 1. Try it out. And there you go. That's the only choice you need, right? Why bother putting in the other seasons? Okay, we should probably put that. Okay, now we've got all 4 options. Do you see any issues with our radio buttons at this time? Seems as though we can't actually select any particular season. We just have to be satisfied with all the seasons being our favorite. That's not what we want. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Time for that. All right. So there's some special things we have to do with radio buttons to get them to work. That's why I picked radio buttons, is because it is this kind of weird special thing you got to do. So you're just gonna have to follow along and trust me on this one. Radio buttons have to share a variable. Okay, and then what happens is when we click on winter, winter's gonna be like, that's mine. And then if we click on spring, it's like, no, it's my variable. And they'll all like kind of take charge of the variable when they get clicked on. So here we're gonna make a variable, make a variable for the radio buttons. The way you make this variable is very special. It should be just a number, but it's a special kind of number. It looks like this. You can name it whatever you want. So you can select choice. Let's go season. Season equals tk.int var. int capital VAR parentheses. Very weird thing. I don't know why they made this hard, but it is. Okay. One of the properties of a radio button is its variable. We're going to say your variable is season. And we're going to say this for all 4 radio buttons. So get your copy and paste fired up again. Do it right the first time. Variable equals season. Your variable equals season. You all share the same variable. And then they're going to fight over it. Now, when you play it again, none of them are selected. And you click one of them. And it selects all of them because there's one more thing we got to do. The last thing we have to do to get this to work correctly is we have to give each individual radio button a value. All right. So with our first one, we go, you are a value of 1. Just add this onto your list of parameters. With your second one, value equals 2. I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not even sure that the values matter. Like you could do 50, 51, 52, 53 if you wanted, I think. But I know that this works. All right, try it one more time. And now, if you can get your mouse to work. Come on, mouse. You can do it. There we go. Now you should be able to select each one individually. So when you click on winter, winter is like, season is 1, yes. And then you click on summer, summer's like, no, it's 2 now. Because I totally know the order of the seasons. We got that working all right? So the last thing to do then is, let's actually do something with it. Okay, when you buy a pizza and you select small, medium, large, nothing actually happens until you purchase the pizza. Just clicking on small, medium, large doesn't necessarily do anything. I guess it can. It might change like the picture, like the size of the pizza that shows up or whatever. So I'm going to make something happen when we click our button, just because this is convenient and we already have our button set up. So I'm going to go all the way back up to my clicker button. Make sure you're tabbed over inside your function. We're going to get the value of the radio variable. The way that you make that variable with the int var thing is special. The way that you get the value of that variable is also special. So I'm going to make a variable called choice. It's just a variable. Name doesn't matter. But what does matter is the name of that variable that we associated with all 4 buttons. I named it season. So I'm going to ask season what its value is currently. To do that, you have to call get, because it's a special thing. But now that we've saved it as choice, we can just do this. We can just old-fashioned if statements. If choice equals 1, I'm going to change the text of the label that asks the question. Label 2 is what that is for me. If you named it something else, make sure you change the name appropriately. So I'm going to configure the text of that label to be hey winner. Test that out. If I click spring, now I forgot to tell my other class this. This is under the main button, the click me button. You have to click this button for anything to happen. If I click on spring and then click the button, nothing changes. But if I click on winter and I click the button, if I can click it, here, there we go. It changes to yay winner. Okay, I'll come check that out. In the meantime, if you want to do some else here, just do different values for your different seasons, you can do that. So there you go. Today we have learned about how to organize our stuff with frames, how to get our frames to fill up space if we want them to. We've learned about different widgets, button, label, radio button, frame. I didn't show you an entry box. Maybe I'll show you that next week, how to make an entry box where you can actually type in it, because that's going to be important for our encryption, is being able to type inside of a box so that we can put in a message. All right, online folks, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. But that's it for today. We're good. It was an intense day. Feel free to add on to this, experiment with different properties, go find different properties, change the layout. Maybe one of you can figure out, how do I make it so texty text doesn't expand and take up all that room so that the frames on the left and right stay the way they should be? Maybe you can figure that out.